On this episode of Game Shack, I review Arcade1up's Terminator 2 arcade game. I'm going to ask if it's worth $2.99 or more, depending on when you buy it. Talk about some of the upgrades that I've done, and generally give you my opinion about this machine. All that and more coming up next. Hey everybody, welcome on back into the Game Shack. I am your host JDV. Thanks for stopping by. Just a reminder that you guys are our sponsor, so if you could give us a thumbs up on the way out the door, it really would help. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, think about doing so. All right, right off the bat, there's two things I need to say about this review. One is I bought this for my own money. I bought this about 3 weeks ago when it first became on sale for $2.99 during the Black Friday sale of 2022. It has gone up in price once or twice since then, but as I record this on the 12th day of December 2022, you can still find this machine for $2.99 at Walmart and I believe Kohl's. It is more expensive at other places, and other games like The Simpsons have gone up and then back down. Tron has gone back down. Other games have gone back up. So pricing is all over the place. So depending on when you watch this video, it may affect how much this machine goes for, but I bought it for $2.99 new in the box. One other thing to note is that the machine that you see in this review, I've done several mods to as I built the game out of the box. And the reason for that is several of the mods are just easier to do if you do it before you actually construct the machine. I will have an entire video on all of the mods I did, but just be aware that some of the things that you see on this machine are mods, like the fact that the cords are hidden, these little guys here, the recessed screen, the fact that the marquee is a little dimmer. I'll get into that in a second. Anyway, I'll have a whole video on how to mod your T2 machine down the line if you're interested in doing so. My version of the game came perfect. There was nothing wrong with it at all. Not a scratch, not a nick, not a ding. It came absolutely perfectly packed. And part of the reason for that is that the Arcade1up has gotten very, very good at their packaging. They can put this machine, which I think weighs in at 95 pounds, somewhere in there. They can collapse it down to a box that I could move by myself. And when I took it out, everything was beautifully wrapped. The instructions were great. It was actually a fairly easy build, but for the additions that I put on there. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But out of the box, not a scratch, looks good. It's a tall machine. It's the normal width of a machine, say 19 inches-ish, although the riser that the game sits on is not your typical riser. It's actually bigger than a normal riser. It isn't any taller, but it is wider and more girthy, I guess is right to say. Anyway, it's a really, really good build, and because the machine doesn't require you to be on it because you pulled the guns out and they're on cords and you can be as close as this and as far away as here, right? It means that you're not touching the game. So you're not really rocking the game the way that you might a fighting game or something like that. So I would expect that the build on this machine would last a good long time before anything went wrong with it. I would say that you ought to be able to build this game in about an hour, maybe 90 minutes if you took your time, 2 hours if you really take your time. So before I go any further in the review, I do want to talk a little bit about the Sinden light gun technology that Arcade1up uses on Big Buck Hunter and this Terminator 2 cabinet. Now, I found the technology to work pretty much flawlessly. I didn't have any problems with it at all. Calibrated the game when I first got it. I just aimed it at the front of the screen, click, done, no big deal at all. And because a game like Terminator 2 does not require a lot of finesse in terms of aiming, the technology works perfect. It was not a hard build. I find the quality of the parts in it to be everything good that you would want. The guns themselves are very close to the arcade original. Now, one of the mods I did not do was paint the guns, and that's one of the mods that a lot of people do. I actually like the fact that it's blue and red. A, in case any little kid rips the cord out and runs down the street and wants to, go blasting lasers away. And two, it does add to the idea that it's a two-player game. The blue and the red is emulated on the game itself, on the cabinet and in the game, so it makes sense in that regard. Now, one thing I did, of course, change is the front decal. I just flipped around the T2 and then put this really nice Terminator, like a naked endoskeleton on there. I think I got that from DB Graphics for, I want to say $35, $40. Anyway, it's a brilliant looking little thing and really does help the machine. It's not arcade original. That's, you know, some people you might want to put in the lit coin doors. To me, I'm starting to think that unless the coin doors work and take money, I'm starting to shy away from that. So I just kind of want to go with ultimate wow look, but you know, your mileage might vary. Anyway, the bottom line is it really is a really nice cabinet. A couple of little things in terms of build quality. The marquee is washed out, and what I did is I just did a really super simple cheap hack, which was use wax paper, fold it up a bunch of times, and I put a little bit of black magic marker to help kind of dim it down. It does help with the washed out aspect of the cab. It's not perfect, but again, to get a full-on upgrade, I think cost $100, and I just wasn't ready to spend that. Other things that I've done to mod the game is I recessed the cords, I recessed the screen, and I put in a subwoofer system that really helps the sound. However, the sound is pretty good on the game, at least in terms of sound quality, but now we're starting to get into some of the negatives. While there are a lot of things to love about this T2 game from Arcade1up, there are a few reasons why you might not want to, or things to look at. Again, there are a lot of mods that you can do to this game, and really they don't cost that much. But to really enjoy the game, you're going to have to do those mods. Putting back that recessed screen really does add a huge effect to it. It gives it kind of a 3D effect because this sticks out, this is in, you have a bezel, and then the game screen is back there. It really does help. I don't understand why they didn't do that right from the get. It is more like the arcade original to do so. It doesn't seem to affect the structural quality of the machine at all. I just don't know why they didn't do it, because it is a no-brainer. Speaking of no-brainer, having the cords be recessed in what is now a pretty easy, famous hack to this game, why they didn't do that right from the start, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Maybe they thought it would snag or something. I don't know. Again, the guns are colored blue and red. Doesn't bother me, but it is not arcade original. Maybe that's something you can do. Again, a pretty easy mod to do that if you want to spray paint off the guns. Other things, that, you know, the kick plate, the fact that it's so plain, that they don't have lit coin doors or better looking graphic, that's, you know, not super great. Again, I had to use a riser to rise the game up about 4 inches. If you are 5'9" or taller, I think you're going to really want to take a look at that for sure. If you're 6 foot tall, you're going to want to. It's just too short if you want to stand back from the game. Of course, if you are crouched into the game, you know, it really doesn't make a difference. But if you do kind of want to step back, and these long cords allow you to do that, then you're probably going to want a riser. In terms of emulation, a lot of people have talked about the fact that the game is a little slower than a true MAME version. There's pixel smoothing in the game, and some of the sound effects and sound stutters, because I think the CPU they use is struggling to keep up with the game. In terms of the on-off button, it's kind of a soft button. There's no click. It doesn't click when you turn it on or off. I wish it did. Again, a real minor point. In terms of the pixel smoothing and emulation, I view this as a party machine, something that you're going to play on Fridays or on New Year's Eve or something like that. You know, for when your buddies come over to your game cave or whatever you want to call it. It's a party machine. It really is. And in that regards, the pixel smoothing isn't going to bother anybody, and probably a few sound effects here not quite being right. Hopefully we can have the pixel smoothing turned off in future firmwares. I do think that is something that Arcade1up should do, but there's no deal breakers, at least in terms of me, in terms of build quality or emulation. There are some weird things that if they continue to make this cab down the line, they really should do, like having the recessed cords. It's just really is a no-brainer to have that in the cab. So what's the bottom line on this game for me? Well, for $299, it's a great deal for sure. $399, it starts to be, okay, I can see $399, $500 above, no, I would not buy this game unless this was your game growing up, like I just have to have T2. Like eventually I know I'm going to get a Tron game at some point. Maybe it'll be a real Tron game, maybe it'll be an Arcade1up Tron game, but at some point I'm probably going to own that game. If that is kind of how T2 is for you, then maybe $400 or $500 is worth it. I really do wish that Arcade1up had done some of these mods themselves. No reason to have a washed out marquee, no reason to have those cords be exposed, and no reason why they couldn't have recessed that screen in the design of the cab to start with. Those are 3 unforced errors. You know, the emulation, hey, they might just be stuck with that based on the chipset and CPU that they had ready at that time. I can give them a pass for that. Other stuff, again, you can live with at a certain price point. Bottom line is, though, I would buy this game again all day long at $2.99, and I probably would buy it again at $3.99. Past that, it's a little tougher. So I would highly recommend you do jump into this cab if you're on the fence, if you want to add that 4th or 5th impact style game to your arcade. Be sure to check out my mod video on this, which should be up sometime next week. It'll be, you know, up there or somewhere, whatever like that. All right, give me a thumbs up if you like this kind of content so I can keep making these shows. Subscribe if you haven't already. Love each other, and Merry almost Christmas. Mwah!
Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.